I'm not going to spend too long on this, or at least I don't think I am, but this box has been sent to me by one of the people who supports me on Patreon, a chap called Mike. He sent me a picture of something he said I might be interested in, and it brought back some childhood memories. So let me open the box and show you what I've got. So this was one of my favourite toys as a child, and I can't remember what happened to mine, so I was surprised to see one again after all these years. I found it in the Argos catalogue from 1980, although some people will recognise these cartridges, these Disney cartridges from their movie viewer system. That originally came out in 1973, but this version of a device that plays them, this was from Corgi, and it came out in the UK, I don't know if it came out anywhere else, and it was like a little kind of television with a remote control, but you can also project on the wall. So let me open it up and I'll show you. Now, it's been a good 40 years since I've seen one of these, but I remember the look of it very well. I also remember it seeming a little bit larger when I was a child, but yeah, I remember carting this around the house, the remote control here, wired remote. I think this was a kind of reimagining of this product for the video age in a way. The time when this came out, people were getting video recorders in their houses with wired remote controls, so of course kids always like something that looks like what their parents have, whether it's a small vacuum cleaner or a lawnmower, those kind of things. Well, in this case it's mimicking your parents' video recorder and television setup. Mike definitely had more cartridges than I did for this device. I seem to remember only having 2, perhaps 3. One of them was, I think it was Donald Duck in a caravan going down a mountain pass, and then the other one I'm sure was Herbie the Volkswagen Beetle. You can see how these cartridges work here. There's a loop of 8mm film, so it just goes on there, round there, across there, and then back onto this side again. And you can see here we've got a mirror, and this section's clear and then this section's frosted, so effectively inside the machine a light will pass through here, hit that mirror there, which will then shine onto the film at the front here, and then that gets projected out onto either the screen or onto the wall, depending upon how you adjust the aperture on the side of the device. So that is how they work, but whether or not it does work or not, we're going to find out in a minute. Let's just see what other titles it had available. Now this is a European release, of course, so what we've got here are 4 different languages, but they're repeating the same thing. So it says other available Walt Disney cartoon cassettes, and then in red those are the English ones: Pinocchio, Sleeping Beauty, Bambi, Dalmatians, Pluto, Goofy, Mary Poppins, Robin Hood, Match of the Century, Herbie Rides Again, Donald Duck, The Tortoise and the Hare. Now I say English, I mean the thing's silent, there's no audio on these at all. The one that's a bit of an unusual one that it's got here is the Incredible Hulk, which it says on the back of here, other superheroes cassettes available. I like the way he's crossed out any foreign languages. No, we will not have those. And it doesn't say which ones, but obviously there's pictures of them, so you can kind of imagine which Marvel superheroes we're talking about here. Now the thing that I remember about this is that it took a heck of a lot of D-cell batteries, and those were expensive back in the day. That might be why it disappeared after a while. I mean, every time you wanted to use this thing, it would burn through those batteries pretty quickly, and they cost you quite a bit. So I remember this is the thing to raise it up a little bit when you're projecting it, but I think that opens it up, and then this should just pop open. There we go. Right, so what's that? 6 D-cells. Doesn't seem like a big deal nowadays, but 6 D-cells were pretty expensive for a child to source back in the day, and parents would soon get bored supplying them with more and more of them. I don't think you can plug this into a power supply anywhere. No. Okay, well fortunately, as an adult now, I can afford D-cell batteries, so let's put some in and see if it works. Living large with the alkalines. Amazon Basics. Now Mike hadn't tested this because he didn't have any D-cells in his house, so I really don't know whether this is going to work or not. Let's put that one in first of all, so you can see how it fits inside the machine. Okay, moment of truth. Nothing. Yeah, nothing at all. Hello? Maybe it's just a bad connection. No, it doesn't want to play ball, does it? Looks like we're going to have to open it up after all. Okay, so we've got inside. As suspected, there's quite a bit of empty space in here. This is the main unit really that does all the work. So if you look on the right here, you might be able to just make out there's a white wheel on the right hand side, and that is what connects with this on the cartridge, which advances the film. Now on the other side of that wheel, on the outside, is this plastic wheel, and there's a rubber belt which travels over to this wheel, and there's a rubber belt from that wheel down to the motor in the bottom. If we could get this powered up, there's a very good chance it should work. Now, there are two wheels on the top here. This right hand one, that's the focus. It just adjusts something in the tunnel here, moves the lens forward and back, but that's the bulb. Light from that travels down this tube here, and depending upon your position of this wheel, the light will either bounce off that mirror and shine out of the side of the cabinet here so that you can project your image on the wall, or if the mirror is in that position, the light will travel down here, bounce off this mirror, which then travels across here, bounces off this mirror and projects on the front of the case. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but these mirrors are rather misty. Over the years they've fogged up a bit, so they need a bit of a clean. I've got the various tools here to do that, but yeah, if we can get it working, definitely clean the mirrors. That might help improve the image a bit. But I think the first thing to do is to see if we can get this whole thing operational by putting some power into the wires on the battery compartment here. Right, let's flip the power switch, see what happens. Oh, that's good news. Oh, and that's not such good news. Looks like the bulb's gone. Yep, bulb's dead. Probably a good opportunity to replace that with something a little bit brighter. Hopefully they do like an LED bulb that would fit in there. I assume you take this screw out to remove the bulb. Let's find out. Yeah, there we go. Okay, looks like I need to find one of these, or something very similar. Okay, I've ordered a bulb. It doesn't have this magnifying lens on the end, but hopefully it'll do the job. It's about as close as I could get. So now I want to move on and clean these mirrors. Well, it's better, but it's not perfect. I think that's as good as I'm going to get with that though. Next we've got this mirror at the back. This is easily removable, so I can clean this one up a little bit better than the others. Yeah, a bit better, but again not perfect. Just shows that you can't improve these too much. They're very poor quality mirrors, but this is about as good as I can get, so we'll stick with that. Now next we've got this screen, and this is intentionally fogged, so we don't want to clean all that off, but we just want to make sure we get rid of any dust. Okay, thanks to the magic of editing, it's now 4 days later. My various spares have arrived, including the LED bulbs, so let's have a look at those first. Now these are multi-voltage bulbs. They had quite a wide range of voltages you could feed into them without any problem. I got 2 of them just in case one of them was faulty. They don't have the little lens on the top to focus the light, but I'm hoping it's going to work. Let's pop it in here. First off, let's just see if it fits. Now the other one was just sort of slotted in there. They weren't screwed in. Bit of a tight fit. I might have to cut some of the plastic away, but yeah, let's just leave it there like that, and I'll switch it on and see if it lights up. So let's put the power through. There we go. Right, okay, well that's a good start. I just need to cut a little bit of plastic away from this just to let the front of it fit in, because the other one was more tapered towards the front, whereas this is a bit fatter where that white plastic ring is. There we go, perfect fit. Okay, one last test. Okay, that's fine. Now, I wonder if there's anything I can do about these rubber belts. I noticed it was slipping a little bit, and at one point one of the belts fell off, which kind of gave me the impression that maybe it's going to do that once I put it back together again, which wouldn't be ideal. So you see, that just feels a little bit loose, that one there, doesn't it? Yeah, that's not doing the job, is it? So this one's a little bit smaller, so we'll start at this end this time. Pop it on here. Now you don't need to worry about square belts being twisted. I get people emailing me saying, you put the belt on twisted. With square belts, it doesn't matter. They straighten themselves out. So let's just switch this on now. Yeah, it definitely seems better with that new belt on there. So let's see if we can find one that would fit the rear. Let's try that. Seems okay. You can tell it's a lot quieter as well. Okay, so let's pop this back in here. Right, so there's these holes at the bottom and there's appropriate parts here which fit in there. So let's just pop those two things together. Okay, I think we should give this a test. So what I'll do, I'll project it on the wall as we don't have the screen on the front. So I've adjusted that on the side there. We'll turn it this way around and put a cartridge in here. There we go. Right, let's turn the lights down and see if this does anything. Oh, yeah, definitely something there. So there you go, that was as exciting as things got when I was a kid. A few issues there, obviously. Not very bright, although I seem to remember from being a child that it wasn't very bright either. There's one thing I want to sort out before putting the lid back on this, and it's the power issue. At the moment, this is supposed to run off 6 D cells. Nobody really wants to do that. And besides that, all the battery connectors have snapped off and they're loose. So rather than mess around with any of that, just bypass it, run the thing off a DC power jack. So I'm going to put that in the back, make a hole here somewhere and wire it up to the connectors on the inside. Well, it's a pretty shoddy soldering job, but they're attached, so that's all that matters. Now, I've noticed there's a bit of a crack up here, so I'm going to glue that together with some epoxy resin. I don't have to be too neat with this because it's all on the inside, but I could do with just getting the thing stuck together a little bit. I'll just put a big blob on the inside and then hold the thing together with some tape while it dries. I didn't realise quite how broken the fittings were for the case. This is the only one that isn't damaged here on the corner. This one has lost the end off it. I've managed to find that part there. And then these two are snapped off at the base, and I've got those here. So I'm going to have to glue all those back in. Okay, it's the next day. This has dragged on way too long, so let's just put it back together. These things are now glued in place. Now, I'm really not sure whether that LED bulb is bright enough, but we'll test it out. I'll turn the lights down here. We'll try this cartridge, Herbie Rides Again. I'm pretty sure this is one of the ones that I had back in the day. So, let's have a look. Okay, well, the positives are that it's working. The negative is that that screen is just way too dark. It's clear that that bulb is not bright enough for this one, or at least not focused enough for it to work properly. So I'm going to have to go shopping for a different bulb. I could get it down to, well, freeze frame like that, which is something I used to like doing as a kid. You could just run these things in slow motion. You could also run them in reverse as well. But these clips, I think they're only, it's like a minute or 2 minutes in length. It's not very long at all. In fact, let me time it from the time the car does a wheelie there and see how long it takes to come back round again. Yeah, so it turns out it's approximately a minute. This is what we had for entertainment when I was a child, the Quibi of its day. I did go through all the cartridges to see if any of them looked significantly better than the others, but they didn't. Now, this is one of the films that I do remember having with mine. That one I recalled that had a caravan in it on a mountain pass. That was actually a Mickey Mouse film. I've looked it up, called Mickey's Trailer, and that wasn't included with these carts. Now, some of these films were a little bit the worse for wear, with quite faded colours, and a couple of them couldn't be properly focused either. But talking of faults, I've got to apologise for the variable audio quality throughout this video. I ran into some microphone issues which only became apparent once I started editing the footage together. It's these cartridges that are really the star of the show though. They made Super 8mm film kid-proof as well as easy to use. Unfortunately the cases are sealed, and as they aren't mine I can't snap them open to have a proper look at the mechanism. However, you can see how all they need is a rotational movement on the wheel in either direction to advance the film one frame at a time. Very simple but resilient and effective. It's no wonder that these were used in many different toys over the years. As well as my motorised Corgi system with its wired remote control, Metoy made the Disney-branded hand-cranked movie viewer, and a similar device was also marketed under the Fisher-Price label, and later under the Kenner brand. Some of those later Kenner sets seem to command quite high prices, and it is a little bit bizarre that they made a 1-minute edit of the R, or X-rated at the time, Alien movie to sell to children. As well as all these handheld devices, there were a couple of similar products to the Corgi Movie Vision. This Fisher-Price one had the same ability to project on the built-in screen or externally, although the film in this one was still advanced by a hand crank. And over in the US, there was also the Snoopy Drive-In.
When the game's called off and you're feeling sad, the Snoopy Drive-In movie can make you feel glad.
3 D-type batteries not included.
Look out, Snoopy! I can even make it go backwards.
Watching Snoopy's fun to do. You can get a groovy Snoopy movie viewer too.
Kenner's new Snoopy Drive-In movie and movie viewer sold separately, each with 1 cassette.
These things were so widespread in the 1970s there can't be many people around my age who won't have vague memories of one of the devices that played these cartridges. And you don't necessarily have to be that old, as just a few years ago Fisher-Price reintroduced a number of their classic toys as collectibles, and the movie viewer was one of the toys they included. Based on my past experience of replacing normal bulbs with LED equivalents, I would have expected that this would have been brighter than the original bulb that came out of the machine. And whilst it does look bright to the camera and to the naked eye, it's not bright enough once it goes inside the machine to properly light up the screen or to project out to the side. So it looks like if anyone wants to get this thing working properly, they'd have to replace the original bulb with a direct equivalent. Now this is an E10 with a focused lens on the front, and once I put it under the macro lens I was able to read the specs off it. It's 2.5 volts, 0.5 amps. And after a lot of time hunting for a bulb that matches those exact specs, I've drawn a blank. I mean, it's really easy to find plenty of bulbs that match some of the specs, but not one that meets all of them. For example, I can get an E10 that matches the correct voltage and amps, but only in the wrong shape and size and without the all-important lens on the end. Or I could get a bulb with the lens and the rest of the specs, except for the required brightness. So after much searching, I've had to throw in the towel on this and leave the quest for this elusive bulb to Mike to pursue if he wishes to. But I've got a feeling that even with the correct bulb in place, the image is going to be pretty poor regardless because of the state of the mirrors. They're made from plastic, and over the years they seem to have lost much of their reflective ability, and no amount of cleaning will help. They've just gone dull. Now, if you had the time, the skill and the patience, you could perhaps replace all those original plastic mirrors with new glass ones that you've carefully cut to size. But then again, you've got to ask yourself the question as to whether or not it's really worth spending any more time on this. After all, even if this projector worked perfectly, you're still left watching silent, Super 8mm, faded, blurred films that are 1 minute long extracts from movies and cartoons that you can often source in full length and in far better quality and with sound from perhaps a DVD, a Blu-ray or a streaming service to watch on your nice big television in your lounge. Sometimes childhood toys are best left as fond memories, because revisiting them as an adult has a habit of taking some of the magic away from those memories. As to what to do with this now, well, that's down to Mike. I'm sending it back to him with his new power adapter. It's in better condition than it was when it arrived, and he can just about watch his old cartridges on it now, and no doubt seeing it working again will bring back a few long forgotten memories for him, just as it has done for me. But that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.